to Living Faith Midweek Devotions. Being that it's just not too far after Christmas, it's very fitting that we continue in Luke where we've been continuing, but the section that we're at. Many of us have traditions around Christmas. Family traditions, work traditions, friend traditions. Many of those traditions turn into things that you do every single year. That's why they're called a tradition, maybe even a ritual. But Jesus and his family also, his parents, Joseph and Mary, had a tradition, or were following the traditions of their culture, of the time. Now, these traditions weren't just things that they did as a family. They were also traditions that were really law. Things that they needed to carry out as an Israelite, as a people of God. Our traditions for Christmas aren't necessarily things that we have to do. They're things that we are used to doing. Jesus came into this world as a baby on Christmas, on that first Christmas, and started all those different traditions. That's where a lot of the traditions come from celebrating Christmas. When Jesus was born, he was born to come to live and follow all the required traditions, the laws that were required of his people, the laws that were required of all people, and he needed to fulfill them perfectly. So that's what we see here in Luke 2, starting at verse 22 through 52. Jesus fulfilling all the laws perfectly in our place. Jesus carrying out that law. He starts it right when he's born. We concluded last time by saying Jesus was circumcised. That was following the law on the 8th day. And now he's 40 days old. And look at how they carry out the laws. And then at the end of our section, he's 12 years old. And look how he's fulfilling the law, being obedient to God the Father. Jesus is all about the Father's business, fulfilling what God has called us to do, what God has called him to do. Jesus is now fulfilling it perfectly in our place. Jesus is reminding us to be all about the Father's business. Luke 2, starting at verse 22. When the time came for the purification rites required by the law of Moses, Joseph and Mary took him to Jerusalem to present him to the Lord. As it is written in the law of the Lord, every firstborn male is to be consecrated to the Lord, and to offer a sacrifice in keeping with what is said in the law of the Lord, a pair of doves or 2 young pigeons. Now there was a man in Jerusalem called Simeon, who was righteous and devout. He was waiting for the consolation of Israel, and the Holy Spirit was on him. It had been revealed to him by the Holy Spirit that he would not die before he had seen the Lord's Messiah. Moved by the Spirit, he went into the temple courts. When the parents brought in the child Jesus to do for him what the custom of the law required, Simeon took him in his arms and praised God, saying, "Sovereign Lord, as you have promised, you may now dismiss your servant in peace. For my eyes have seen your salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of all nations, a light for revelation to the Gentiles, and the glory of your people Israel." The child's father and mother marveled at what was said about him. Then Simeon blessed them and said to Mary, his mother, "This child is destined to cause the falling and rising of many in Israel, and to be a sign that will be spoken against, so that the thoughts of many hearts will be revealed, and a sword will pierce your own soul too." There was also a prophet, Anna, the daughter of Penuel of the tribe of Asher. She was very old. She had lived with her husband 7 years after her marriage, and then was a widow until she was 84. She never left the temple, but worshipped night and day, fasting and praying. Coming up to them at that very moment, she gave thanks to God and spoke about the child to all who were looking forward to the redemption of Jerusalem. When Joseph and Mary had done everything required by the law of the Lord, they returned to Galilee, to their own town of Nazareth. And the child grew and became strong. He was filled with wisdom, and the grace of God was on him. Every year, Jesus' parents went to Jerusalem for the festival of the Passover. When he was 12 years old, they went up to the festival according to the custom. After the festival was over, while his parents were returning home, The boy Jesus stayed behind in Jerusalem, but they were unaware of it. Thinking he was in their company, they traveled on for a day. Then they began looking for him among their relatives and friends. When they did not find him, they went back to Jerusalem to look for him. After 3 days, they found him in the temple court, sitting among the teachers, listening to them and asking them questions. Everyone who heard him was amazed at his understanding and his answers. When his parents saw him, they were astonished. His mother said to him, "Son, why have you treated us like this? Your father and I have been anxiously searching for you." "Why were you searching for me?" he asked. "Didn't you know I had to be about my father's house?" But they did not understand what he was saying to them. Then he went down to Nazareth with them and was obedient to them. But his mother treasured all these things in her heart. And Jesus grew in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and man. Dear friends, I pray that your Christmas traditions, your family rituals around this time are a blessing to you. I also pray that all those family traditions and rituals point you back to the reason why we celebrate Christmas. Jesus coming into this world. Jesus coming and humbling himself to be born under the law, to redeem those under the law, to redeem you, to buy you back from sin, to live perfectly in your place, to carry out the law for you. Here we see Jesus fulfilling the laws and the rituals as a man. As God, he didn't have to, but as man, he did, because he was a substitute for us. Jesus came to save us. Jesus came to live for us. And Jesus did it perfectly under the law. God bless your after Christmas celebrations leading into the new year, and I can't wait to talk to you next week as we continue in Luke chapter 3 and as we begin a new year. God bless you, dear friends.